Hey everyone, before I dive into my story, please hit that subscribe button and join the channel. Your support means the world, and I'd love for you to be part of this journey as I share what happened to me. My name is Emily, and I never thought I'd be sharing a story like this. It all started a few months ago when I noticed something strange with my email. Messages I hadn't sent were in my sent folder, and my inbox had emails marked as read that I'd never opened. At first, I brushed it off as a glitch, but deep down, I felt uneasy. My accounts were my lifeline: email, social media, banking, all tied to my identity. I'm a freelance graphic designer, so my online presence is everything. Losing control of it would be catastrophic. The weird activity kept happening, and I started getting notifications about login attempts from unfamiliar devices. I changed my passwords, enabled two-factor authentication, but the sinking feeling wouldn't go away. It was like someone was watching my every move. I didn't know then that this was just the beginning. My life was about to unravel in ways I couldn't imagine. The thought of someone accessing my accounts felt like a violation. I couldn't sleep, constantly checking my devices. Little did I know, this was only the tip of the iceberg. My partner, Alex, noticed my stress but didn't understand the full scope yet. The first real red flag came when I couldn't log into my social media. My Instagram, where I showcased my design portfolio, was locked. I tried resetting the password, but the recovery email had been changed. Panic set in as I realized someone had taken control. My account was posting things I didn't write: random ads, strange links. Clients started messaging me, confused about the spam. I spent hours on the phone with customer support, but they couldn't help without the recovery email. I felt helpless, like my digital identity was slipping away. My followers, my reputation, my work, all at risk. I started noticing odd charges on my bank account too. Small amounts at first, but they added up quickly. I contacted my bank, but they said the transactions looked legitimate. How could this be happening? I hadn't shared my passwords with anyone. Alex tried to comfort me, but I could tell he was frustrated. He didn't understand why I couldn't just fix it. I was terrified of what might come next. I decided to dig deeper, scouring my devices for clues. I found a suspicious app on my phone I didn't remember downloading. My heart raced as I realized it might be malware. I ran a scan, and sure enough, it flagged keylogging software. Someone had been tracking every keystroke I made. My passwords, my messages, everything was compromised. I felt violated, like my life had been invaded. I immediately wiped my phone and laptop, but the damage was done. Whoever did this had access to my entire digital world. I started getting messages from friends asking why I was acting strange online. My accounts were sending out messages I didn't write. Some were harmless, but others were cruel, targeting people I cared about. I tried to explain, but not everyone believed me. Alex started getting distant, saying I needed to get a grip. I couldn't blame him, it looked bad. But I was fighting an invisible enemy, and I was losing. The situation escalated when my email started sending messages to my clients. They were unprofessional, demanding payments for work I hadn't done. I lost 2 major contracts within a week. My reputation was crumbling, and I couldn't stop it. I spent days trying to regain control of my accounts, but the hacker was always one step ahead. They'd changed security questions, recovery emails, everything. I felt like I was drowning in my own life. My bank account was drained next. Thousands of dollars gone. The bank said they'd investigate, but it could take months. I had no savings left, no way to pay my bills. I started getting calls from debt collectors about loans I never took out. My credit score tanked overnight. Alex was supportive at first, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. He kept asking how this could happen if I was careful. I didn't have answers, and that made it worse. I was losing everything I'd worked for. I hired a cybersecurity expert, draining what little money I had left. They confirmed my accounts had been breached through a phishing attack. I'd clicked a link in an email that looked legitimate. That one mistake cost me everything. The expert tried to recover my accounts, but the hacker had covered their tracks well. They were using VPNs, fake IPs, and stolen identities. It was like chasing a ghost. I felt so stupid for falling for the phishing scam. I'd always thought I was tech-savvy, but this proved me wrong. My clients stopped responding to my emails. My social media was now a hub for scams, and my followers were dropping like flies. Alex started questioning my judgment, saying I should have been more careful. I wanted to scream that this wasn't my fault, but I was too exhausted. The stress was eating me alive. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. My life was falling apart, and I was powerless to stop it. Then came the worst blow. My personal messages were leaked. Private conversations with Alex, things I'd never want anyone to see, were posted online. They were twisted to make it look like I was cheating on him. The hacker had edited screenshots, making it seem like I was betraying him. I tried to explain, but Alex was furious. He wouldn't listen, saying the evidence was clear. I begged him to believe me, but the damage was done. He packed his things and left that night. I was alone, staring at the wreckage of my life. My partner, my love, was gone because of lies someone else created. I felt like I'd been stabbed in the heart. The hacker didn't just steal my money or my accounts, they stole my relationship. I cried for days, unable to process the betrayal. I didn't even know who was doing this to me. The anonymity of it all was maddening. I wanted to fight back, but I didn't know where to start. I reported the breach to the police, but they weren't much help. Cybercrime was complicated, they said, and they didn't have the resources to track down the hacker. I felt abandoned by the system. I spent hours researching online, trying to find answers. I joined forums for cybercrime victims, hoping for advice. Other people shared similar stories, but no one had real solutions. The hacker was still active, posting from my accounts, taunting me. They even sent me a message from my own email, mocking my attempts to stop them. I felt like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. My mental health was deteriorating fast. I started having panic attacks, something I'd never experienced before. Alex wouldn't answer my calls or texts. My friends were distant, unsure if I was telling the truth. I was isolated, with no one to turn to. The hacker had taken everything: my money, my career, my love, my peace. I tried to rebuild, starting with new accounts. I set up fresh email addresses, new social media profiles, everything with maximum security. But the damage to my reputation was done. Clients didn't trust me anymore. My old accounts were still out there, controlled by someone else. I felt like a shadow of myself, trying to claw my way back. I took a part-time job at a coffee shop to pay the bills. It was humbling, going from a successful freelancer to steaming milk for lattes. I kept checking my old accounts, hoping for a miracle. Sometimes, the hacker would go quiet for days, giving me false hope. Then they'd strike again, posting something new to ruin my day. I was paranoid, triple-checking every link I clicked. Alex sent me one last message, saying he couldn't trust me anymore. That broke me more than anything else. I loved him, and now he thought I was a liar. The hacker had won, and I was left with nothing. I started therapy to cope with the stress and loss. My therapist helped me process the violation of my privacy. She said it wasn't my fault, but I still felt responsible. I kept replaying that phishing email in my head, wishing I'd been more careful. The financial strain was overwhelming. I was living paycheck to paycheck. My credit was ruined, and debt collectors wouldn't stop calling. I tried to focus on the new accounts I'd created, slowly rebuilding my portfolio. But every step forward felt like 2 steps back. The hacker was still out there, lurking. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching me. I stopped posting personal things online, terrified of another breach. My therapist encouraged me to keep going, but it was hard. Alex's absence was a constant ache in my chest. I missed him, but I didn't know how to fix things. I felt like I was fighting a losing battle against an enemy I couldn't see. I reached out to a lawyer, hoping for some kind of justice. She explained that cybercrime cases were tough to prosecute. Without a clear suspect, there was little we could do. She suggested focusing on damage control, rebuilding my credit, securing my accounts. I followed her advice, but it felt like putting a bandage on a broken leg. My old accounts were still compromised, and the hacker was still active. I started getting strange calls from unknown numbers, sometimes just heavy breathing on the other end. It was terrifying, knowing someone had this much power over my life. I moved to a new apartment, worried the hacker had my address. I changed my phone number, cut off social media entirely for a while. But the fear lingered, a constant shadow. I wondered if I'd ever feel safe again. My therapist said healing would take time, but I was impatient. I wanted my life back, but it felt so far away. Months passed, and I was still picking up the pieces. I managed to get a few small design gigs, but nothing like before. My confidence was shaken, and I second-guessed every decision. I kept my new accounts locked down, using a password manager and VPN. But the paranoia never fully went away. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, checking my phone for breach alerts. The hacker had gone quiet, but I didn't trust it. I knew they could come back at any moment. My friends tried to support me, but many had drifted away. They didn't understand the toll this took. I felt like I was living a double life, one online, constantly on guard, and one offline, pretending to be okay. Alex had moved on, posting pictures with someone new. It hurt, but I couldn't blame him. The lies the hacker spread were convincing. I focused on work, trying to rebuild my reputation. But every new client felt like a gamble. Would they trust me? I started educating myself about cybersecurity, determined not to let this happen again. I read books, took online courses, learned about encryption and phishing scams. Knowledge gave me a sense of control, but it didn't erase the past. I shared what I learned with others, hoping to help someone avoid my fate. I started a small blog, anonymously, about my experience. It was cathartic, writing about the pain and fear. People commented, sharing their own stories of cybercrime. I wasn't alone, and that brought some comfort. But the financial strain was still there. I was still paying off debts from the hack. My credit score was slowly improving, but it would take years to recover fully. I missed the freedom of my old life, before the breach. I missed Alex, even though I knew we were done. The hacker had taken so much, but I refused to let them take my spirit. I kept pushing forward, one day at a time. One day, I got a break. A cybersecurity friend traced one of the hacker's IPs to a small town halfway across the country. It wasn't much, but it was a lead. I passed it to the police, though I didn't expect much. They said they'd look into it, but their tone was skeptical. I felt a spark of hope, though. Maybe I could find out who did this. I kept digging, using my new cybersecurity skills. I found patterns in the hacker's activity, times they were most active. It wasn't enough to catch them, but it made me feel like I was fighting back. I shared the lead with my lawyer, who said it might help if we could build a case. But the process was slow, and I was running out of patience. I wanted justice, not just for me, but for everyone who'd been through this. The hacker had turned my life upside down, and I needed closure. I kept my blog updated, hoping it might reach someone with answers. The community grew, and I felt less alone. My blog started gaining traction, and I connected with other victims. We formed a support group, sharing tips and stories. It was empowering to help others, even if I was still struggling. I started getting messages from people who'd been hacked, asking for advice. I wasn't an expert, but I shared what I'd learned. It gave me purpose, something to hold on to. My design work was picking up too, slowly but surely. I landed a steady client, which helped with the bills. But the emotional scars were still there. I'd see something that reminded me of Alex and feel a pang of grief. I wondered if he'd ever know the truth. The hacker's silence was unnerving. I didn't know if they'd moved on or were planning something worse. I kept my security tight, never letting my guard down. My therapist said I was making progress, but I still felt fragile. The support group kept me grounded, reminding me I wasn't alone. One night, I got an anonymous email. It was from someone claiming to know the hacker. They didn't give details, just a cryptic message about watching me. My stomach dropped. Was this the hacker taunting me again? I forwarded it to my cybersecurity friend, who said it could be a bluff. But I was shaken. I double-checked my security, changed all my passwords again. The fear was back, stronger than ever. I stopped posting on my blog for a while, worried I'd drawn attention. My support group encouraged me to keep going, saying my story was helping others. I wanted to be strong for them, but I was terrified. The anonymous email haunted me, making me question every interaction. I started having nightmares about faceless hackers. My therapist suggested taking a break from the internet entirely, but I couldn't. My work, my support group, my life was online. I felt trapped, caught between fear and necessity. I decided to take a risk and respond to the anonymous email. I kept it vague, asking for more information. To my shock, they replied. They claimed the hacker was someone I knew, someone close. My mind raced. Who could it be? I didn't want to believe it, but the doubt crept in. I thought about everyone in my life, friends, colleagues, even Alex. Could he have done this? The idea made me sick, but I couldn't rule it out. The anonymous sender wouldn't give more details unless I paid them. I didn't have the money, and I didn't trust them anyway. My cybersecurity friend warned me it could be a scam. I felt like I was in a game of cat and mouse, with no way to win. I told my support group, and they urged me to stay cautious. The idea that the hacker was someone I knew was paralyzing. I stopped trusting everyone, even my closest friends. My world felt smaller, lonelier than ever. I kept working with my lawyer, hoping the IP lead would pan out. She said the police were cooperating but moving slowly. I felt like I was running out of time. My blog was helping others, but it wasn't fixing my life. I was still in debt, still rebuilding my career. I missed Alex more than I wanted to admit. I saw him post about his new life, and it felt like a knife in my chest. I wanted to reach out, explain everything, but I didn't know how. The hacker's silence was deafening now. I wondered if they'd finally moved on. But the anonymous email kept me on edge. I started noticing small things, odd glances from coworkers, strange messages from unknown numbers. Was I paranoid, or was someone really watching me? My therapist said it was normal to feel this way after a breach. But normal didn't make it easier. I kept pushing forward, clinging to my support group and my work. A breakthrough came when my cybersecurity friend found a second IP. It matched the first one, narrowing the location further. I felt a surge of hope. This could be it. I passed it to the police, who finally seemed interested. They said they'd investigate but warned me not to get my hopes up. I couldn't help it. I needed this to end. I kept my blog anonymous, but I shared the update with my support group. They were thrilled, saying it gave them hope too. I started to feel like I was reclaiming some power. My design work was steady now, and I was paying off some debts. But the emotional toll was still heavy. I'd see Alex's posts and feel a mix of anger and sadness. I wanted to tell him the truth, but I didn't know if he'd believe me. The anonymous emailer went silent, which was both a relief and a worry. I kept my security tight, refusing to let my guard down. I was stronger now, but still scarred. The police finally had a suspect, a former coworker I'd had a falling out with years ago. They couldn't confirm it yet, but it made sense. He'd always been tech-savvy and held a grudge. My mind reeled at the betrayal. Could someone I knew do this to me? I shared the news with my support group, and they were shocked but supportive. My lawyer said we might be able to build a case if the police found evidence. I felt a mix of relief and anger. If this was true, I wanted justice. But I also wanted to understand why. What had I done to deserve this? My therapist helped me process the idea that it might not be about me at all. Some people lash out for their own reasons. I kept working, kept blogging, kept healing. My life was slowly coming back together, but the scars were deep. I still checked my accounts obsessively, still feared another breach. But I was fighting, and that was something. I decided to confront the past. I wrote Alex a letter, explaining everything, the hack, the lies, the pain. I didn't expect a response, but I needed to try. I mailed it, hoping it might bring closure. My blog was growing, and I started speaking at local cybersecurity events. Sharing my story felt empowering, like I was taking back control. The police were still investigating, but they had a warrant to search the suspect's devices. I felt hopeful for the first time in months. My support group was my rock, cheering me on. I landed a big design contract, a sign that my career was recovering. But the fear lingered, a quiet hum in the background. I kept learning, kept securing my accounts. I refused to let the hacker win. My therapist said I was reclaiming my narrative, and I believed her. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was a survivor. But the journey was far from over. The police found evidence on the suspect's computer, logs of my accounts, phishing tools, everything. It was him, my former co-worker. I was stunned but relieved. Finally, a face to the nightmare. They arrested him, and my lawyer said we had a strong case. I felt a weight lift, but the anger was still there. Why had he targeted me? I might never know. I shared the update with my support group, and they celebrated with me. My blog readers sent messages of support, saying my story gave them strength. I started to feel like I was making a difference. My design work was thriving now, and I was paying off more debts. But Alex hadn't responded to my letter. I tried not to let it hurt, but it did. I focused on the present, on rebuilding. The hacker was behind bars, but the damage he'd done lingered. I was stronger, but I'd never be the same. I kept my security tight, knowing I could never be too careful. The trial was set to start in a few months. My lawyer was confident we'd win, but I was nervous. Facing the hacker in court would be hard. I started preparing with my therapist, working through the trauma. My support group was there, offering advice and encouragement. I kept blogging, sharing every step of the process. My readers said it helped them feel less alone. I landed another big client, and my career was finally stabilizing. I moved into a better apartment, a fresh start, but the scars were still there. I'd see Alex's posts and feel a pang of loss. I wondered if he'd ever read my letter. The anonymous emailer never contacted me again, and I hoped they were gone for good. I kept learning about cybersecurity, determined to stay safe. My life was coming back together, but it was a new version of me, stronger but cautious. I started volunteering with a cybersecurity nonprofit, teaching others how to protect themselves. It felt good to give back, to turn my pain into purpose. My blog was now a platform for advocacy, and I was proud of it. The support group had become a family, and we met regularly to share stories and strategies. My design work was flourishing, and I was almost debt-free. The trial was approaching, and I was ready to face the hacker. I wanted him to see the damage he'd caused. My therapist said I was healing, and I could feel it. But the loss of Alex still hurt. I hadn't heard from him, and I was starting to accept that I might never. The hacker had taken so much, but I was taking my life back. I kept my accounts secure, my routines strict. I was a survivor, and I was proud of that. But the fear of another breach never fully left. If you've been touched by my story, please subscribe to the channel and join our community. Your support helps me keep sharing and helping others. Let's fight cybercrime together. Hit that subscribe button now.